Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jasmo.
And this is Kim.
And before we begin this week's episode, we want to do a little house cleaning on a topic that we did last week. The late, great Stephanie Hine, her husband, Thomas, ended up chipping in some suggestions for TV show theme songs that I wanted to mention this week. We're not going to go very long into it because we, delved into a lot of TV stuff last week as well, but he tossed his some suggestions in the hat, and I wanted to put them out there. So one thing he mentioned was Doctor Who. Classic theme song.
Yeah, definitely.
Depending on who's doing it. I prefer the newer Murray Gold versions. Hill Street Blues, a Micah post-classic. Can't go,
It's not coming to mind. Sorry, your singing just didn't do it for me.
It didn't? What?
What?
No, you've heard it. I know.
I know I've heard it. I just can't. It's not coming. As soon as I'd hear it, I'd be like, oh, Hill Street Blues. But yeah.
And you mentioned another one here, Buck Rogers and in the 25th Century.
Oh, Buck Rogers. I really liked that show when I was a kid. There were a couple of sci-fi shows that came out around the same time. Mm-hmm. Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers were out at around the same time. And I loved both of those. Oh my gosh, so much fun.
With Mel Blanc as the voice of the robot. Beady, beady, beady.
Beady, beady, beady.
That was good. He also mentioned Stranger Things, but I've never seen an episode of that show.
I've watched the first season, and that is a really great theme song. It definitely invokes that sort of 80s feel that the show has. Mm-hmm. And it's a pretty good show. I think you would like it, Tim. You should probably give it a shot.
Well, my usual MO is catching something about 10 to 15 years after it debuts.
All right, so we'll talk about it in, 8 years?
Yeah, if I'm still around. I don't know.
If the world still exists in
exactly. And there's one that I forgot to add, too. It would have been an honorable mention, but Knight Rider.
Oh.
I mean, with the voiceover alone from the late, great William Conrad, folks our age would probably only know him as the Fat Man from Jake and the Fat Man, but he was a legendary voice actor. He was Gunsmoke, the TV show, used to be a radio show, and he was the original voice for Matt Dillon. But when you look like him, he's not going to make it to TV, unfortunately.
Okay, voice for radio kind of thing?
Pretty much, but it's, Knight Rider. Just that deep, dark bass voice. Just, really, really good, but...
Okay.
Definitely forgot to mention that one, but let's get on with the show at hand.
On with the show.
You have something interesting you want to bring up this week. What is that?
Well, I don't know if it qualifies as interesting, but it's that time of year, so it kind of fits in. So we're recording this. It's the fall. It's the autumn, and that means back to school, trick-or-treating, and that means we're coming up on flu season and cold season and all that sort of crap season. Yep. Which means it's time to get your flu shot, people. We did that today. Yep. We had a super hot date, hot dogs and flu shots.
Yeah.
Yep.
She spent all of $8 on me, so...
Yeah, so if you need a flu shot, you don't have insurance, Costco's doing them for $20.
And if you want a cheap date.
And if you want a cheap date, hot dog and a soda, $1.50 in the food court. Yep. So, yeah, get your flu shot. If you have health insurance, it's going to be fully covered at pretty much every pharmacy. Yeah,
and with Costco, it was $20. $20
to Costco.
$20 to make sure that you don't get severely sick. With the economy being as weak as it is for people in middle to lower middle class economic range, you cannot afford to be sick at all.
You can't afford to be sick. Plus, it protects your family and your loved ones. And with the jobs that both of us have, because, podcasting don't pay the bills, people.
Unfortunately. I know you imagine us all in, platinum bathtubs, with
Oh, yeah, we have a gold-plated toilet, and the cats are wearing diamond collars, and, yeah.
They have their own butlers.
They have their own butlers. Really. Truly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why Peach's butler has assless chaps. I did that.
Oh, that was me.
Okay, then.
Well, by the way, chaps by default are assless. That's the nature of chaps.
You know what I meant.
I know what you meant. Anyway, so I read an interesting article this week on the Washington Post, and it was about mucus, a.k.a. snot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds gross, but scientists at MIT have been making some interesting discoveries and doing a lot of research into what's in your snot, what's in your mucus. And a lot of people don't know this, but your body produces about 1 liter of mucus a day. And it's not just in your nose and in your throat and in your lungs, it's in your guts, it's in your pipes, basically. It helps keeps things moving. It helps protect you from sickness. It helps flush things out that aren't supposed to be there.
It's like Valvoline.
It is, basically. It's your body's lubrication. It keeps stuff moving around. And if you're like me and sometimes you'll get a runny nose after you eat, that's because your body's making extra mucus to move your digestive stuff around. So if you find that your nose is running when you eat, that's pretty normal. It's a normal reaction. Your body's just making stuff to move the fuel around. So what's kind of cool about the research they're doing at MIT is they're finding that there are proteins in mucus that they help keep good bacteria moving around and help spread the bad bacteria out so your white blood cells can attack the bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they're finding that they might be able to develop new antibiotics out of our mucus.
Nice.
And if that sounds kind of gross to you, they already have what they call fecal implants or fecal transplants. Because there's this really terrible infection called C. difficile, which is basic Clostridium difficile, which is it's an infection that's passed around a lot in hospitals and in nursing homes, and basically it gives you terrible, terrible, terrible diarrhea and stomach cramps, and it requires really expensive antibiotics to cure, and then it can take months to get it all out of your system, and then you have to rebuild all the good bacteria in your gut. So what the fecal transplants do is they put the good bacteria in some capsules, it's all sterilized and everything, you start taking that, and it just helps rebuild your body. It's still in the experimental stages. It's not like you can go to the Walgreens and say, hey, give me some poop pills. It doesn't work that way. And if you said poop pills, they would think you meant something else.
I can just think of some guy in Duluth, Minnesota or something like, oh no, we need a donor fast. And then halfway across the country, someone has a big poop, and then they have medical people come and collect it, and then they travel at top speed across the country.
It's not like poop is anyway, we're getting way off topic. The topic was mucus, not poop. And I know this sounds kind of gross, but the science behind it is actually really interesting, and I'm kind of a nerd in that regard. I'm very interested in science and new breakthroughs and different ways they're discovering things that can help us. And antibiotic resistance is a terrible thing, and it's real, and they're having trouble coming up with new antibiotics. There are also resistant funguses as well that can attack your skin, and it's scary stuff. So do your best to stay healthy, and if you have to go on antibiotics, make sure you really have an infection. Don't just try to get them for a cold, because that's not going to do anything. And if you take antibiotics, finish the prescription. Take them all. It helps build superbacteria when you don't finish your antibiotics.
Dun, 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 dun.
I know. It's true.
Yep.
It's science. It's true.
The more you know.
The more you know. Doo-doo-doo. I'm all done.
Okay.
I'm done with mucus for now.
All right.
Until I go blow my nose
Well,
later.
we'll segue into rock and roll.
Well, I guess that, yeah, okay, sure. We'll segue into rock and roll. I had a thought there for a moment, but it just can't. It just went in and went out. It flew away.
No.
It's out the door. It's on its way down the road.
All right. Well, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has announced the nominees for this year's class in induction, and they've also set up their fan voting as well. Now, fan voting historically has been 98% irrelevant. It's more of a way for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to essentially get people's email addresses to send them stuff throughout the year.
See, I know nothing about how the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame works. I just figure it's like a Hall of Fame, and people visit it and look at pictures and listen to music snippets and go, oh, cool, I like this band, and that's pretty much all. It's basically just a way to get people to come to Cleveland, isn't it?
It was started by Jan Winter and a group of folks, and
Isn't he Rolling Stone?
Yeah.
Kind of Rolling Stone.
Yeah, and basically they have had their rule is that you're eligible for the Rock Hall of Fame 25 years after you release your first album. And then from there, it can only be voted on by members and also inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the one big complaint about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame throughout the years is that they've generally stuck to the same type of music each and every time.
Well, it is called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
No,
it's not called the Classical Hall of Fame.
It's not that. It's more of a pretentious. We feel that these people are rock, and these people, even though they play rock music, they're not of the same quality. Type of deal, which is why you would have someone like Crosby, Stills, and Nash being one of the first inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then you have a metal band like Def Leppard or Kiss just getting into it recently when they've had just as long a career as Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
They put Kiss in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
They did.
Why?
Well, I mean, the big reason I would defend Kiss going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is that, on a positive note, they did open the doors in terms of money that bands could potentially get.
I guess. I mean, they have really, taken merchandising to a whole new level.
They have, and that's one. I mean, the first concert I paid to see was Kiss, the reunion concert in '96. I have no regrets. It was a great time. I love that show. I love a lot of their early music, but just integrity-wise, they lost me a long time ago.
Well, they were groundbreaking in their own way because of the whole makeup thing, and that kind of opened the door for bands like Slipknot with the masks and stuff like that, I suppose.
Well, that wasn't even original. I mean, you had bands like before them, like the New York Dolls, with that were glammed and dressed up.
There's a difference though between the glam and the whole makeup and personas and taking stage names to a whole new level kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I guess. I mean, I'm not really defending Kiss because honestly, I think they're overrated. I mean, I appreciate them for what they are, I suppose, but I'm not.
They're a good intro band for rock and roll, but they're not the deepest band.
Yeah,
in the world,
I like a couple. They're a greatest hits band, and we're gonna go back to this definition of bands that I wouldn't get into their whole catalog, but I'd probably own a greatest hits album kind of thing.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where they fall for me.
Yeah, you have bands like that, and then you also have bands that have never been nominated that, in my opinion, do deserve to be nominated that, for whatever reason, are being held back, like the Monkees. The Monkees have never been nominated, yet they've been around for years. Their catalog speaks for itself. The argument that apparently is being used to keep them out is that they were a fake band, that they were manufactured, that they didn't even write most of their
band manufactured in a way. I mean, if you want to say that, then take Kiss out.
Well, it depends on the level of popularity of that band. If they're a top selling band, topping the charts, making millions upon millions of dollars, then yes, you're going to have record company officials wanting to protect their investment by making sure that band fits into particular little squares that they know how to market.
But making money doesn't mean good.
Nickelback?
Creed.
But
yeah.
Basically, yeah, and not knocking anybody who likes those bands, but
oh yeah, we are.
I'm
knocking people who like those bands.
Anyway,
yeah.
Anyway, this year's list of nominees pretty diverse in a way. We'll go over the list right now. On the top of the list, we got Pat Benatar.
Okay.
Hit me with your best shot. I mean, she deserves it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I could see Pat Benatar. She was pretty groundbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, if they had a chance to, induct Stevie Nicks twice into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they have a chance to induct her at least once. The next one, Dave Matthews Band.
They're a greatest hits band for me. There's some songs I like, but I think in some ways they're a little overrated. I'm kind of torn because I can kind of think of them as a frat band, because I've known so many fraternity bros that were into Dave Matthews and the Dave Matthews Band, and And I heard like someone say that say about REM, well, they're no Dave Matthews Band.
Shut the fuck up. Who said that?
It was some couple of douchebags I used to play World of Warcraft with. They
Did
said that in chat. If I could smack him in real life, I would have. I basically I made one of those noises into voice chat, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, yeah, Dave Matthews Band and REM are no comparison."
I mean, Dave Matthews is someone I would put along the lines of Kiss. I mean, Dave took the formula that the Grateful Dead have took in terms of building your audience through the live performance, and not necessarily through your albums, and that has to be respected because, again, it's another way for bands to learn to make more money.
And Fish, too. Fish is similar in that regard.
Yep.
The whole jam band kind of thing.
Yep. The next one on the list, I figure you might like this, Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
Own personal Jesus.
I mean, a lot of people probably wouldn't think of them as rock and roll because they're very synth, and a lot of people think rock and roll and they immediately think electric guitar.
I actually read a story. So. It was ZZ Top, the Eliminator album. Before they made that, Billy Gibbons went to a Depeche Mode concert.
Oh, good for him.
And he listened throughout, and he really liked how they used the synthesizers, but made the music sound bluesy in a way.
Yeah.
And after the concert, he actually went backstage and started talking to them, and they became friends. And, that's how, in the 80s, ZZ Top was able to get, synthesizers into their music, thanks to Depeche Mode.
Oh, I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of early Depeche Mode work is it's pretty much synth and drum machine, and that's it.
Yeah.
With a little bit of guitar. But yeah, in their later music, they've branched out in terms of instrumentation.
Yep.
And, not all of their albums are hits, and some of them were misses, but overall, I think they have a good, solid body of work.
They do. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be a fan. I like a couple of their songs. They're not at a greatest hits level band for me, but it's like what I said last week about Nine Inch Nails. I mean, whether I like them or not is irrelevant. You got to respect the work.
Yep.
All right, the next one on the list, the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm actually surprised. Is this the first time they've been nominated?
I believe they've been nominated before, and they probably have a chance of getting in at some point. But for me, a Hall of Fame band should be somebody that will stand the test of time. And I don't know if the Doobie Brothers, whoa, listen to the music. That's perfect for its time, but it's not something that you can put on Spotify today and have a 20-30-year-old person who's never really heard them really get into them.
I think you're wrong in that regard. I think they've got those hooks. They got the hooks, and I think that you may not. I bet if I played some of that for like my nephew, my 11-year-old nephew, he'd probably be like, "Hey, this is pretty cool. I like this." I bet he would like that. But yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good choice.
All right, the next choice, Whitney Houston. This is probably going to be a slam dunk because the past few years, especially, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has made a point to kind of branch out into other genres that in art and try to induct artists that kind of fit the rock and roll spirit. And when it comes to Whitney Houston, I'm not talking the negative stuff. I'm really not. I don't know if I would vote for her to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not knocking her talent. She was a great singer when she was alive. I just think that, in my opinion, this one is just one of those picks that they're trying to do to, they will get her family on stage. They'll have a feel-good crying moment, induct her in, and what good does that really do? This is like the WWE Hall of Fame when they inducted Coco Beware. It doesn't... If it happens, it happens. But to me, it's like, why?
She was a talented singer.
She was, but rock and roll?
Yeah, I don't...
It
doesn't... I think the only reason that it would happen is because she's passed away.
She's passed away and has, name value.
Yeah,
I mean, she still has
I don't
name
think
value.
that's a good choice.
All right, the next choice. They've been nominated before, didn't get in. Judas Priest. The last time they were nominated a couple years back in the fan voting, like I mentioned earlier, with the fan voting, it's largely irrelevant. But if there is a band that's kind of low on the Hall of Fame inductees' radar, but the fan voting is able to get them to the top of the list, then that's going to get them some notice. The problem with Judas Priest a few years back is that with fan voting, they only got in 5th place. Which is a shock, because, come on, Breaking the Law, you got another thing coming. Painkiller, they got a long history of amazing kick-ass music. That,
I mean, their music is good, but I don't think they have the reach of a lot of these other bands. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of Judas Priest, but they wouldn't be able to name a song.
Oh, come on. They would at least be able to name Breaking the Law.
That's only because of Beavis and Butthead.
Well, for me, I think they deserve it. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. I'm just saying that I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it. And honestly, I don't think the band really cares that much either.
Well, yeah.
You know, they're still touring. They're still making tons of money. So it's not that big of a deal to them. And like I said, too, with metal bands especially, they've been ignored for so long by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that more often than not, they just don't really care because they don't expect it to happen. You know, Metallica in a lot of ways, hopefully, you know, when they were inducted will be the start of an appreciation of metal artists for the Rock Hall of Fame.
I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. But I mean, I'm not saying they're not a great band, because they are, but
yeah, at least not this year. The next band, Kraftwerk. I know they influenced Bowie with his Berlin sound
they
in the 70s. They
influenced pretty much every industrial band that's come since. I think that they are a huge influence, but I don't think they'll make it. Yeah, I don't think enough people are familiar with their work.
And I know they've been nominated before, so they would have to really have... The only way they're really getting in is if they had a weaker nominee list, and I think with the nominee list that they have this year, it's not going to be their year. No. They got too many people that can come in. The next band, MC5, kind of
that's pretty obscure.
It is pretty obscure. They do come from Detroit, kind of the forebears of, you know, modern, loud, hard rock. Just fast, balls to the wall, just, you know, crunchy stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen either, unfortunately. There's some good stuff on this list, but yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
The next band I absolutely love. I hope they get in. Motorhead. Lemmy deserves to be in the Rock Hall of Fame.
I think that one's going to happen. I think that'll happen. Of all the ones so far, I think that one's probably a lock.
Yeah.
Probably because he recently passed.
He recently passed, and his songwriting ability is really underrated. I mean, you hear his voice, you don't expect him to be able to create, you know, such amazing songs like he does.
Yeah, he and this band, they're extremely influential in terms of all of the metal bands that have come since.
Oh, yeah.
I think just about every major metal band lists Motorhead as an influence.
Oh, and punk. I mean, Motorhead had the ability to kind of spread into different genres. Yeah. And fun fact about Lemmy, he was Jimi Hendrix's roadie.
Wow. I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
In England, yeah. So he's been around for a long time. The next one on the list is a band we actually talked about last week, Nine Inch Nails.
I am not surprised by this, actually, because, and at the same time, this makes me feel extremely old because you said 25 years?
25 years from their first release. Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, I hate getting old. I think it's well-deserved. Nine Inch Nails has done some amazing stuff in terms of electronic music and melding it with guitars and such. Plus, Trent Reznor's done some incredible scores. Just all the stuff that I said last week, insert it here. You know, I think that that's probably a lock as well. Nine Inch Nails and Motorhead both.
Yeah, Nine Inch Nails definitely is probably going to be the name at the top of the marquee for this year's Rock Hall of Fame, in my opinion. They definitely deserve it, and the fact too that, you know, Trent is able to write about such sometimes dark material, and then songs like Closer, you know, material that doesn't normally get covered in a way. He's able to express it in a way that people can still relate to. You know, like Closer, you know, he's able to properly convey through the music that feeling that two people can get when they just decide, screw it, and rip off all their clothes and go nuts.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to the Fragile 2 album, So that entire album is a masterpiece, in my opinion.
Yep.
So.
All right, the next one on the list is probably another one that's going to be a sure thing to get in. The Notorious B.I.G.
Meh. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend people, but I'm pretty meh about a lot of 90s rap. I'm pretty meh about it.
I'm kind of in the same boat. Just it didn't speak to me, which is why I didn't really care for it that much. I mean, it really is as simple as that.
I mean, I know he's influenced a lot of other people, and a lot of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame seems to be, can you make a mark? Can you spread something that's influencing people further down the line? And I know that's happened with the Notorious B.I.G., but
yeah,
if he wasn't dead, would he be nominated?
I think he would, because again, they've been making a concerted effort the past few years. I mean, they inducted NWA. They inducted, I believe, Public Enemy a couple years back. So they are making an effort, like I said, to kind of branch into other genres to induct artists that kind of fit the rock and roll spirit.
Yeah, then that makes sense.
Yeah. All right, the next one, Rufus, featuring Chaka Khan.
No. I'm not saying not good, but I just don't see it happening. There's too many other powerhouses on the list so far.
Yeah, I would say this has a small chance. They have a better chance than Judas Priest. Let's put it that way.
Probably.
Because again, different types of genres, they do tend to favor that more for induction than, categories like metal. Next one on the list, Todd Rundgren. I would say, from what I understand, his work as a producer is probably going to be more what gets him that nod.
You're reading my mind. I would say so too. Yeah, I can see it, but it might not be the right year though. I think that there's a good chance. I mean, how many do they induct?
It varies per year. They have like a 3 maybe 4 hour broadcast on HBO each year, and the induction happens in one night. So it's not like they're gonna invite everybody, because it's usually they will have somebody introduce the band, and then that can be 20 minutes to 30 minutes of that person talking about how that band influenced them. Then the band comes out and then thanks everybody, and then at the end of the show, once everybody's inducted, they have the big concert at the end.
So is there how many bands though? That just
it varies. It varies.
Yeah.
So
on average, is it 3 or 4?
No, we're talking 5 to 7.
Then if it's that, because I was thinking like they came up with because this, honestly, I haven't paid attention to this. I got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, you got life, right?
I got a life, I love music, but I haven't really paid attention to this in the past. So
yeah.
If they're going to be doing that many a year, then I could see it. But because I was thinking, we'll make this big list and then take like the top 3, because I'm thinking, how are people going to stay awake for a program that long?
Yeah.
That poor audience,
All right, the next artist, Soundgarden. I think with Chris Cornell's suicide, this is going to be another lock.
God, there was a lot of suicides that happened the last couple of years in terms of music and just people passing for various reasons, and this was one of the saddest ones, definitely.
Came out of left field too. I mean,
yeah.
You didn't. I mean, you knew Chris Cornell, like most rock musicians, had a drug habit for a while, but you didn't hear stories of him being depressed. Like Kurt Cobain, the last 6 months of his life, you would hear stories like what ended up being a suicide attempt in Rome that they tried to say was something else, and he was sick or something like that. You knew something was wrong.
Well, that's the thing with mental illness, is that it's pretty easy to mask it. Even if you're like doing the work and taking your meds and going to therapy, you have your bad days, and you can be smiling and laughing one day and down as far as you could possibly get the next. So
yeah. And the fact that he chose as the last song he ever sang the Led Zeppelin song "In My Time of Dying," he probably planned this out for a bit.
Yeah,
but
it's tragedy. It really is.
Yeah. All right, the next artist, T-Rex. Another artist of his time. The only song I sort of like from him is Bang a Gong. I know David Bowie referenced him in one of his songs.
I don't think.
No, not that Sound of Old. No, the Who did. The Who mentioned it. Sorry, but I know David Bowie did associate with T-Rex, and didn't he? No, that was Mott the Hoople. All the Young Dudes.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah.
Not this year.
Okay. And last but not least, Thin Lizzy.
Not this year.
Sadly, I mean, they deserve to be in a long time ago. This is another group that falls into the metal category. One of those bands that more than deserves to be in the pantheon of rock legends. If we need a big building to say it, stuff like The Boys Are Back in Town, Whiskey in the Jar. Mm-hmm. They did a lot of great stuff, but with the lead singer of that band passing away as tragically as he did, and the sands of time have kind of dimmed people's memory on how good Thin Lizzy was.
I'm kind of surprised they're on the list at all, honestly. It's... Yeah.
They should have been nominated a while ago. But anyway, that's the list of this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees. What do you got for us?
What do I got for us? It's been... it's been kind of a weird week. I've been trying to think of something that I want to talk about, and... not a lot's been going on. I've been thinking back to a couple of weeks ago. We had the Emmys, Emmy Awards, and so a lot of times what the Emmys does for me is it gets me to look at shows that I hadn't looked at before. So I decided to use my Amazon Prime for things other than ordering cat food and socks.
Yeah,
and
and underwear,
socks, underwear, and cat food. So I watched Fleabag. Nice. It got a lot of... she won a Phoebe Waller-Price, I believe her name is. She's the lead actress, and she produced and written...
And she's writing the new James Bond.
And directed. Wow, okay. Did not know that. Mm-hmm. But the show, it was done by Amazon in conjunction with the BBC, and I wasn't sure what to expect, and I just watched both seasons of it. It's a pretty quick watch, and it's pretty damn good.
Nice.
I see why it got Emmy Awards. Season 1 was kind of setting everything up. Season 2 was crazy. It was good stuff, and the cast. We've got Oscar nominee, and I don't know Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
Did she win for the... What was it?
I forgot the name of the movie, but she did win the Oscar. She was on Doctor Who.
Yeah, she... Oh gosh, I bought the friggin' movie and I watched it a couple times, and the name is just completely escaping me. Oh gosh, I feel so stupid right now. Okay, anyway, she was in that, and she plays the stepmother of the lead character in this, and my goodness, she is just off the wall, and it's really fun to watch. One of the other characters in this that was one of the other actors, he played Moriarty in the reimagining of Sherlock that was done recently, and his name is escaping me too, and I was terrible and didn't bring up the IMDb page before we started recording, so I'm going to do that right now because I'm going to feel really stupid if I can't remember his name.
Now, one thing I've heard about this show is that it does a great job at portraying women.
Oh yeah, definitely. The women are fully realized, amazing, crazy, fun. Yeah, it's a great show.
Crazy women? What?
Crazy women. Yeah. So it is Olivia Colman who plays the stepmother. Andrew Scott is the actor I'm thinking of. He plays the priest in season 2. He is amazing. If anybody watched Sherlock, and this is the one with Benedict Cumberbatch playing Sherlock, which is the first reason that I started watching it. Second reason was it's a really good show. Andrew Scott played Moriarty in the show, and if you've watched it, you know just how friggin' creepy he was. He is an amazing actor in terms of doing creepy. So, yeah, it's really it's a fun watch, and Amazon's got a lot of good stuff. I'm really surprised. Oh, the movie was The Favorite. That's the one. Okay. Had Emma Stone in it as well.
She has big bug eyes.
Yes, she has big bug eyes.
Yeah, just like, you know.
Pretty much, yeah. But
Yeah.
Fleabag, it's sad and it's funny and it's very well written, and I think it's worth watching. And it is a bit dark at times, so you have to have a dark sense of humor, which I do. So, worth watching, deserves the Emmys.
Nice. Let's talk about Martin Scorsese.
Okay, let's talk about Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, he
had a lot of things he had to get off his chest recently, didn't he?
Yeah, his new movie, The Irishman, is currently in a limited run in theaters, but it will be, if it hasn't done so already, be debuting on Netflix soon.
Okay.
Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci coming out of retirement to be in the film.
Wow.
So it's, looking to be a good film, but Scorsese had some interesting comments about Marvel movies.
Oh.
Yeah, he came out and essentially he compared them to theme park rides. He says they're not cinema, and he's challenged, movie theaters around the country to start showing more narrative movies. And this really got up my craw.
I can imagine, because just thinking about this people can release as many narrative movies as they want. But that doesn't mean that people are going to get off their asses and go to the theater to see them. And pay the money and make it worth the while of cinemas to actually play them. And I think he has a point in the terms of we should have more movies out there that make people think. But the problem is the cinema landscape is a lot different now than it was 30, 40 years ago, because we have the internet. Mm-hmm. We have streaming services. It is going to take a lot to get people to get off their couch and go out and spend money to see a movie when they can do it at home and not have to take off their pajama pants.
And still get just as good quality on,
exactly.
With the electronics that are out there today, 50, 60, 70-inch TVs with 4K picture quality, surround sound that people can buy for relatively cheap compared to what they were in the past. It's...
Plus you can drink beer, smoke a joint, eat whatever's in the fridge. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get a Coke.
Yeah.
It's a completely different market, and if you're not willing to expand your mind in that regard, then you're just...
It is a different market.
He makes a point in the fact we should have more movies that make us think.
But I think this too. I think history has shown, when it comes to movies and entertainment in general, that entertainment that reaches the mass audience is generally what that audience needs at that particular time.
Yeah.
Look at what we have in the news today. People do have a yearning for someone, to do something good, and right now I think we're just at a time, whether it is Marvel movies or other movies of its sort, that we as a culture want to have that simplistic story, because we're seeing a lot of complicated stuff in everyday life. We're getting tons of stuff thrown at us. Sometimes we just want to escape, and right now, during the stuff, during life the way it is right now, escape movies are more vitally important than they used to be. That does not mean, I'm not trying to say that something like Avengers Endgame, in the grand scheme of things, will ever compare to Goodfellas. Goodfellas is high art. Avengers Endgame is...
It's pretty, and it's fun, and there's explosions.
But it's essentially McDonald's.
It is.
And that's not a bad thing, because sometimes McDonald's can come out with a sandwich that tastes really, really good. Sometimes they can have a particular restaurant in a particular part of town, in a particular place in the country that may be fun to visit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's still... It's a different offering than what, a traditional narrative film will be. And in a lot of Scorsese's comments, which just gets at me, is a lot of it's just condescension.
Yeah, well, a lot of it, is definitely condescension. I don't think he realizes what a thin line most of us are living on when it comes to economics as well. Mm-hmm. Most of us have a very limited entertainment budget. And it's like, okay... Do I want to spend, $20 on tickets, $20 on refreshments to go see a movie that's going to make me feel like shit later? Or do I want to see something that is going to make me happy and entertained? You know, I mean, most people these days just don't have the money, they don't have the time.
And if they do go out, they want it to be something special. I mean, like when we talked about earlier in the year with the Avengers Endgame review, I will never trade the experience I had watching that movie on opening night just because of how that theater reacted.
Yeah.
With the screaming, the yelling, the cheering, and whatnot. And I guarantee you, 50, 100 years from now, more people are going to be talking about Avengers Endgame than they are going to be The Irishman. Doesn't mean The Irishman is a bad movie.
It's probably a great movie. It's
probably better than Avengers Endgame, because let's think about the portal scene in Avengers Endgame. If we're being realistic here, why would a bad guy in Thanos' position give the good guys time to pose before they attack? Because while everybody's coming through the portals, Thanos should have just sent,
I know.
He should have sent all the bad guys after them and could have wiped them all out while, Spider-Man's posing and everybody else is doing their posing. Logically, come on. But how it was presented in the film, the images, the music, everything all blended together, the feel of the audience, I'll never forget that.
Basically, Scorsese's being a rich white asshole.
Yeah.
Because, it's he's not understanding where the modern audience is coming from these days. At least he's releasing it on Netflix, like, soon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good thing.
Well,
a lot more people are going to see it that way.
I think with this argument, though, he's leveling his anger at the wrong group.
Yeah.
Because really, and I think George Lucas has commented on this before with the production of Star Wars. I believe it was an interview we did after he sold the Star Wars rights to Disney, in the fact that, Hollywood studios today are like gamblers that don't want to lose their money. So they put such rigid restrictions on their creators that there's a reason why they keep going to the well for, comic IPs, for, reboots and relaunches and whatnot, because they're scared to put a lot of money into what could potentially be the next Star Wars, because it could be the next Star Wars. It could also be the next Cutthroat Island. The pirate movie from the 90s that bombed and destroyed Carolco, the movie studio that brought us Terminator 2.
Yeah, I think if Scorsese wants to get mad, then he should be getting mad at the studios who are restricting creativity in purely economic terms. And maybe he should be helping young filmmakers be creative and making interesting original things instead of rebooting things and live action stuff. They're doing a live action of Lady and the Tramp.
That's going to be on the Disney Plus app, though. That's not coming to theaters.
It doesn't matter. It's one of those unnecessary things. It's like, why not come up with something new? Why do we have to keep remaking the same things over and over and over again?
Well, you'll notice this year with Disney, they've had a gluttony of films in theaters this year, but they did it with the express purpose of having a lot of content available come November when the Disney Plus app hits. Yeah. It was a very purposeful action on their part.
This is one of the reasons why I enjoy drag so much, is because there's always something different and original and new coming. There's so many creative people involved that they're coming up with new things all the time, new outfits, new concepts, just new stuff. And what we need is more queer people in the entertainment industry in general, and not just the creative types behind the scenes doing makeup and hair and costumes. I mean, doing everything. Mm-hmm. And that's where... How about Scorsese donate a bunch of money to some kind of film school and that promotes more queer movies?
Not even that. He needs to look at the work of one of his compatriots. Someone who came out at around the same time and has had just as much of an impact as he has. Steven Spielberg. Think about all of the movies that Steven Spielberg has produced.
Good point.
You know, Back to the Future, The Goonies, Poltergeist.
But those aren't deep.
But
Tim, those aren't
but the
deep.
Point, that's
aren't art.
That's not the point, though. The point is that Spielberg saw some talent in those particular directors and wanted to use his name to essentially give them a bigger platform than what they would have had before. Why can't Martin Scorsese, who is on this kick of putting out more narrative films, put Martin Scorsese presents a blank 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 film? Boom. You know, because Martin Scorsese's name above the title, like the Joker movie. The Joker movie, he produced that.
He did?
He was one of the producers.
I did not know that.
And that's, you know, they did, you know, kind of put that out there.
Wait a second. So he's knocking on the Marvel movies, yet he produced a movie that's based on a comic property? Because
the Joker movie is essentially a low-key remake of The King of Comedy.
Oh, it sounds very hypocritical to me.
A little bit. But overall, you know, he has a point in terms of, you know, people should recognize high art and, you know, mass consumer art, but there is benefit and value in both.
I think most people do know the difference. And when you're working 40 to 60 hours a week, and you're tired and you're coming home and you just want to relax and eat your dinner, what are you going to put on the TV to watch? You're going to put on a comic book movie? Or are you going to put on something that's deep and requires a lot of thought? I know what my choice would be, and that's going to be the comic book movie. Because if I'm working hard, and I do work hard, we both work hard, and I just want to chill out, I don't want to have to think too much. And that sounds very American and stupid, but at the same time, it's the truth. I mean, most of us are working hard and we're scraping by and we're trying to do our best and be good people in this world. And sometimes you just don't want to have to, like, see a movie that's dark and depressing.
Yeah, because you could turn on the news for that.
Or I can just go about my regular life.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Speaking of dark and depressing, let's talk country music.
This is called payback, folks. Yeah, we're going to go to our weekly segment showcasing an album of ours that we appreciate a week. This week it is my choice, and what I chose was the Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson album called Waylon and Willie. Before we proceed, what are your overall thoughts of the album?
Waylon is right. I was wailing and gnashing my teeth as I listened to this repeatedly. I mean, I can appreciate country music. I can appreciate classic country music. I am very glad you didn't make me listen to Garth Brooks. I'm very glad I didn't have to listen to some other new country, which I don't even want to start naming names because this album was both entertaining at times, but overall frustrating because I know it's going to sound kind of hypocritical of me based on some of the other music that I like, is I can't stand whiny men. And that's coming from someone who likes bands like The Cure and The Smiths and Nine Inch Nails. So it sounds very hypocritical of me. I don't like the whining with the freaking country guitar going wow wow behind it. I think that's what it is. I don't like the whining lyrics mixed with the whining music.
Well, for me, I will say this. I'm not an overall huge fan of country.
Then why did you make me listen to this?
Because there is some country that I do like. And that my general taste in country music does generally tend to go towards the outlaw country movement. Because, I mean, you talked about it last week when I first mentioned that we would talk about this album. And
yeah, I like Johnny Cash, and that's
the point. I mean, most people, when they say I don't like country, will say, but I like Willie, but I like Johnny. And the reason I think that's the case is that country is just as guilty of other musical genres when it comes to the mainstream artist of, wanting their artist to, follow, certain guidelines.
Yeah, there's a formula.
There is a formula, and country music has been notorious for sticking to that formula through thick and thin. And then
She/he done me wrong,
Yeah.
My life is terrible. I miss my girl. I miss my guy. The truck broke down and the cows went dead, and I don't even...
And also, too, when it comes to how they dress and the types of messages that they say, I mean, look at the Dixie Chicks. They just said George Bush sucks, and their career took a nosedive because they alienated the mainstream country audience.
Yeah, but then they picked up a bunch of people who were like, hey, you're right, George Bush does kind of suck.
Yeah.
And hey, I think I kind of like this music. And that little one's cute. I mean, at least that was the case for my ex-husband. He was like, yeah, the Dixie Chicks are okay, I guess. That little one's cute.
Alrighty then. For me, I guess it's just the honesty that can come through with the outlaw country. Just because too, they do incorporate a lot from other different types of genres as well. And we'll go a little bit deeper into this. Because there are a couple of covers of some rock songs in here that we'll talk about. But this is an album that was in my home as a kid.
Oh, it's one of those, and I can identify with that because there's definitely some.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my mother, when she was alive, was a hardcore country fan. This was in the early '80s when pop country was still pretty big, so Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers. My mother had a big thing for Ronnie Millsap. And, she had a record collection, and Waylon and Willie was a part of that collection. However, my sister and I were not country fans. Like, the first album I ever received wasn't a Guns N' Roses album, wasn't, a Beatles album or anything like that. It was one of those gas station greatest hits collections that you can buy of Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn.
Was it by K-Tel?
Probably. I mean, because you go into gas stations or truck stops across the country, you can buy these what they call greatest hits albums of these companies that are able to get the rights to like some lower level songs from big name bands or obscure live recordings, and still kind of.
And they'll throw them all on a cassette tape or a CD, and you can still get those now.
Yeah,
if you're like really desperate for something to listen to in the car, and you're in between radio stations, and if you're driving out in the middle of nowhere, I think you all know what I mean. If you've all driven out in the middle of nowhere at some point, you're like trying to find something to listen to, and you're tired of the 3 CDs that you have, and you didn't pack anything, and this is before you had a freaking smartphone, and you get to the next
or Spotify where you can download your playlist and stuff like that.
Exactly, you get to the next gas station, it's like, I am desperate for something to listen. I used to have a few of these cassette tapes that were like sort of greatest hits things, and this was back when you could get like greatest hits of the 80s and things like that, and those were good for that.
Before the now, this is what they call music crap.
Oh gosh, actually I have one of those now. This is what I call music ones. It's like remixes of some like favorite kind of hip hop ones. It's a workout one,
right?
But I listen to it at work when I need to wake up. It was like $5, and it has some pretty good songs on it. So,
I'm so sorry.
Don't knock the now this is what I call music thing, because some of those are actually pretty good.
Yeah. And you say country's bad. Anyway.
Oh, I know. You guys can knock on me all you want when it comes to my taste. I like I said, I can be very hypocritical at times.
Well, this album, it was our second house. My sister will know this. Nobody else will. We lived on a street called Vries. Vries, a good old Dutch name. It was the second house that we lived on, because we lived at one house, and then like a couple years later moved like 4 houses down.
Oh.
Weird. But, my mother did have a record collection, and this was one of those albums that we had on there. But all my sister and I would do would be, like, every time we would get home from school, we would put the TV on, and, like, Yo MTV Raps would be on, and we would take her records, and I'm a rapper! Yeah, so we totally...
Wiki.
Yeah, I mean, if my mother could reanimate in the closet right now, she'd probably would.
I think I can hear her.
Yeah. She'd probably smack me upside the head for admitting that. But, you know, the album here kind of did bring back some memories of growing up here. But I say let's do a deep dive. Let's start with the first track.
First track's a classic.
This track here, the name alone is... in the entire song, I mean, if you go up to a casual person on the street and say, name a country song, they're probably going to name this.
Yeah, probably this one or The Gambler.
Something like that. And that's Mamas, Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. What'd you think?
It's a classic. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. It's a pretty damn good song.
Did you know it's a cover?
I did not know it's a cover.
Yeah, I forgot the original artist's name, but about a year or two before this album was released, the original version of that song came out, and it's a much slower tempo song.
Is that kind of like how Dolly Parton wrote I Will Always Love You, and then Whitney Houston covers it?
Yep.
Yeah, one of those kind of things.
Same type of deal.
Well, hopefully the original songwriter made a buttload of money.
You would think.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, because I did some research, and the last time this song was in a commercial was 2015. Oh. So it's still making money?
Yeah, it's still making money, so good on you, whoever wrote the song. Yay!
Yeah. But what I like about it, too, is the lyrics. I mean, in a lot of ways, it is quite relatable. At least for me, that, like, what's that... there was the lyric in the middle of the song about a guy who ends up knowing he's wrong, but has pride and doesn't want to admit that he's wrong. Type of. I've been down. A lot of women are shaking their heads right now if they're listening here. Yeah, that's me. I was able to relate to that, and just overall, one hell of a good song.
Great song.
Yep.
Great song.
All right, the next one is a Chris Christopherson song. It's called The Year 2003 minus 25.
First, I don't like songs that make you do math in the title. I was like, the year 2003 minus 20. Just say what year you're talking about. Dude, seriously. I mean, I was just pretty mad about the whole thing.
It was all right. I mean, I didn't need the anti-Semitic reference.
Oh, yeah. The anti-Semitic reference was great. And the whole, like, military might theme was super awesome.
Yeah, I guess well, first of all, Chris Christopherson, most people probably would be more familiar with his work as an actor, but he was actually a really talented musician.
Yeah, he is a talented musician.
Wrote the song Me and Bobby McGee that Janis Joplin made popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The song was essentially about what was going on in the world at the time. That was about the time that OPEC had the oil embargo and all that. And there was talk that we could potentially get into a war or something like that.
This came out in what year? 78. Yeah. I remember 78.
As the title implies, the year 2003 minus 25.
Yep. So, yeah, I remember 78 when, I believe, was it 78 that there was gas shortages, and you could only go to the gas station on certain days when there was special flags outside and everything like that. And wow, I am dating myself because you probably weren't alive to remember that. You were. No,
I was alive. I was born in 76, but I don't remember that.
Yeah,
the first thing I remember, age 4, watching Jimmy Carter on TV.
Yeah, see, I was 78. I would have been 5. So, yeah.
She's a cradle robber, folks.
Yeah, I'm a super bad cradle robber. Yeah, so I was 5. So I remember, like, there were certain days where it was like, yeah, we can't go anywhere because we need gas, and we can't go to the gas station on these days because it's not the days for our car. They think it went by license plate numbers and
something like
that. I don't remember all the details because I was 5.
And I worked in customer service enough to know that I feel horrible for those people that worked at gas stations at that time having to deal with that.
What do you mean I can't get gas? Blah, 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 blah.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, people today are absolutely horrible when it comes to people in the service or retail industry. Having to wait 3 hours to fill your gas tank up.
Yeah.
I understand the anger. Don't get me wrong, but if you're taking it out on the person pumping your gas, there's a problem with you.
I want to see your manager.
Yeah, fuck that. All right, the next song, "Pick Up the Tempo." It needed to pick up the tempo. It was probably one of the weaker songs on the album.
Oh yeah, it was up there.
Yeah. Because of that, I thought, why not talk about my sister?
Oh, okay. So pick up the tempo. You're going to talk about your sister.
Yeah, because we got to be entertaining somehow. Now, there was a time when she was a little kid. I believe I was in kindergarten. She was in preschool age, and we were on our house on Crofton before we moved to Vries, which was 1 block over. And people are like, "What? I don't give a fuck." Anyway, anyway, my mother one time was like, "Hey, I need a butter knife," and my sister was like, "I got it." She ran to the kitchen, got a butter knife, and then she comes running out of the kitchen through the dining room. I could just picture it as if it's in slow motion with the Chariots of Fire theme song playing in the background. And she's got the butter knife in the air like she's the Statue of Liberty, and she's running. And just as she gets in the living room, boom, she trips and her head hits on the coffee table.
And it was probably one of those, like, super blocky 70s coffee tables with the sharp edges and the dark wood.
Yep. And I mean, my sister has a really thick hard head anyway, so I think she took out more of the table than the table took out from her, but that was kind of funny.
That'll leave a mark
on the table. All right, the next one, I kind of dug it. A Willie Nelson track. It's called "If You Can Touch Her at All." I loved the line, "One night of love don't make up for 6 nights alone. I'd rather have one than none, 'cause I'm flesh and bone." Just some of the lyrics in the song really, really touched me.
I can identify with "I'd rather have one than none," but overall, I was like, "Weh."
I think of it like this, though. When I hear that, I can relate to it, because to me, this is how guys can end up feeling in relationships. I've certainly felt that way. With women I've dated before. Some women, life happens. You don't always get to spend all day, every day with the person you love. And if they're off, living life and doing whatever, you're going to cherish those few times that you can be with that person.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'll make you like it.
No. I suppose if you look at it that way, but I just couldn't get past the kind of whiny tone of voice that he had, and the sad guitar.
I will say this: it gets old on repeat listening for me, just because he has so many similar themed songs throughout this album.
Yeah, there's a point that when listening to this that they all start to run together.
Mm-hmm.
And literally the last time I listened to this, I had to stop and actively listen and be like, okay, which song is this again? Because some of them were starting to really run together, and this was one of them. And
Willie had the weaker slate of songs, because they had a few duets together, and then they had a block where Willie had some songs, and then a block where Waylon had some songs, and Willie had the weaker slate of songs on this album.
I would agree with that, yeah.
All right, the next one, "Looking for a Feeling." I considered it another formulaic one, and it had the stereotypical bad country bass, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that one I thought was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because it was more up-tempo than the ones that came before it, and I was just like, oh God, thank you, a break in the whining.
Agreed. All right. Let's talk about my sister again.
Oh God, what?
Yeah. Let's talk about this.
I don't even know your sister.
I can tell you about the time that I convinced her she was adopted.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty mean.
Yeah, and, it was funny. We were at our first house on Vries, and my sister and I had the upstairs bedrooms. Sometimes late at night, my mother would sleep downstairs and whatnot and wouldn't really hear us. So sometimes we'd get up and, be in the bathroom, and what we would do is to take the toilet brush and a washcloth and play baseball.
With the toilet brush?
Yeah. Yeah, we she would toss the washcloth, and then I would hit it, and then I would go first, second, third, home, and then I got the point. If she caught it, I was out.
Oh my God, with a toilet brush?
It was the only bat we had access to. But anyway, one night, with how our rooms were situated, there were no doors, so it was open, and we would just talk. And one night, I just out of nowhere said, "You're adopted, by the way, right?" And she was like, No, I'm not. I'm like, yeah, you totally are. Ma just didn't want to tell you. Just went into this whole spiel about how, she wasn't really my sister, or her mother wasn't really her mother. And then it was funny because the next day my mother was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Your sister's not fucking adopted.
Oh my god, you're horrible.
It was worth it. It was funny.
You go like, you go way past the line when it comes to a joke, I think, sometimes.
Oh no, I did that later when she was in college.
What did you tell her that I don't know. Can't even think because
no, I'll tell because you're gonna think of something, and I found a way to take it a lot lower. She went to a Christian college at the time, and that's important here because I told her one time that I had testicular cancer, just so she would go to her people and pray, and then I can say that I had her entire school praying for my balls.
Okay, that's pretty funny. First I was gonna say, were you gonna try and convince her that you were possessed by a demon or something?
Nope, I just convinced her I had testicular cancer.
I mean, it's pretty shitty that you would fake cancer, because cancer sucks, and
yeah,
that's pretty shitty. But at the same time, to get your Christian sister and all of her Christian friends to pray for your balls.
Dear God, Tim's balls are hurting today.
Please, Jesus, make his balls better and not so blue.
Comfort his balls with your holy hands.
Hold his balls within your grace and in your glory.
Bless
Amen.
them with
Bless
your
the balls. Bless the balls. Okay.
All right, on to the next one. It's Not Supposed to Be That Way. Another Willie song.
Another wah song is what that is.
It is, but again, lyrically, there are some aspects it's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to know that I love you. And
no, women are not mind readers. We are not supposed to know these things.
But
use your words, Willie. Use your words, Willie.
As someone who knows how to break up relationships by not talking, it's it's relatable on my part because. You can be with someone you really care about. You break up. Breakups happen. Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But still end up just totally regretting and feeling sad for how that breakup happened.
Okay, that's true.
And that's how I saw it. I didn't relate to it as somebody wishing someone was back and then trying to recapture the old glory. It's just it's not supposed to be that way. It shouldn't have ended like this.
Yeah, see, I saw it the other way.
Yeah. All right. I Can Get Off on You is the next song. Kind of a low-key song, but I take back the weed, take back the cocaine, baby. Take back the pills, take back the whiskey, too.
So the music I liked, the lyrics I was like, eh. But the music was kind of groovy for the fact that it was a country album.
Mm-hmm.
This one had a little bit of funk, had a little bit of soul. It's kind of a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, to me,
I could see this as a driving song.
It's really about a story about an unhealthy relationship that may be taking the right turn to being healthy again. Because Willie Nelson, everybody knows he's a pothead. Waylon Jennings, the year before this album came out, had this notorious drug bust at a studio when he was recording some music in New York. They were looking for some cocaine, and he was able to ditch it. So he didn't get in trouble with that. He had that drug bust eventually became the song "Don't You Think This Outlaw Bit's Done Got Out of Hand." One hell of a good song, and if you find it, if you go to YouTube, James Hetfield from Metallica actually covered that really good song. But it's one of those. It's fun if you don't really think about it. If you do think about it, you see it's not the most healthy thing in the world, but you cross your fingers hoping that something positive can happen.
Yeah. At the same time, too, that kind of made me think of, people who rely on another person to make them happy. or rely on substances to make them happy. And you have to find happy on your own. You can't rely on substances and other people to make you happy.
Yeah. All right, the next one is another Chris Christopherson song called Don't Cuss the Fiddle. Another song, stereotypical boom, 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 country bass.
I like that because it broke it up. It broke up the sad, sad guitar. And
the funny part about this, though, at the end of the song, they start singing the song that Willie and Waylon made famous a couple albums previous, Good Hearted Woman. They realized when they were recording this song that song and Don't Cuss the Fiddle had the same tempo. So it was, they put that in as more of a joke because the lyrics talk about stealing songs and whatnot. And then, they put that in. So that was pretty funny. All right, the next song for me, if you were going to listen to one song off this album, it has to be this one. And that's Waylon Jennings' cover of Gold Dust Woman from Fleetwood Mac. What did you think of it?
No.
You didn't like it?
Didn't like it. I'll take original Fleetwood Mac any day.
I
didn't like it.
I loved it. I mean, the Fleetwood Mac version, I love that as well. This did not try to compete with that in any way, shape, or form. What I liked about it is that Waylon essentially made it his own thing. And you would, on paper, you would think that, Waylon Jennings covering a Stevie Nicks song, the results are not going to be that good.
And they weren't.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, I don't think the results were that great.
Yeah, for me, I really dug it. I think that, that's the one I would recommend people listen to, more so than even Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys.
Yeah, I would take the Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. But also, with regards to Mamas, what about Papas? Papas should be doing that parenting too. Darn it.
Yeah. If the mamas let him. Anyway, the next song. Probably the worst song on the album. A Couple More Years. The co-writer of the song was a gentleman by the name of Shel Silverstein.
Oh, Shel Silverstein. I love Shel Silverstein. I hated this song. I didn't have any thoughts about this song or the next song because I have a blank space on my little note sheet here. And that means that it all blended together and I just was like, I didn't bother to make notes, which meant I have no feelings.
Okay then. Well, for folks that aren't aware, Shel Silverstein, if you're not familiar with the name,
if you're not familiar with Shel Silverstein, where have you been? You're
familiar with The Giving Tree, Where the Sidewalk Ends, books like that. But he was actually one of the songwriters that helped with the outlaw country movement.
I did not know that.
He was a major songwriter.
You were always teaching me new things, too.
Yeah, the more you know. There's a Johnny Cash song that he wrote, A Boy Named Sue.
Shel Silverstein wrote that?
Yep.
That song's classic.
Yeah, and, reading some of his books, that, that connection with that song makes sense.
Now that I think about it, it does make sense, because in Shel Silverstein's books, if you don't really know about Shel Silverstein, he writes basically poetry for kids, and a lot of what he writes has a lot of rhyme and meter and rhythm, and it's great for kids. It's great stuff for kids. And maybe I didn't like this song so much, or it didn't make an impression on me because the lyrics, because he's a kid's writer, and the lyrics just didn't speak to me as an adult. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, I think, too, that this is another victim of so many similar themed Willie songs that by the time you got to this, it didn't matter how good it was going to be. You're just like, come on, just like get a blowjob from somebody. I don't know. Have something good happen.
I did not have that thought, but apparently, yeah.
I'm picturing Willie Nelson getting blowjob. No.
You're weirdo, dude.
Me? What?
Anyway. Oh, God, I don't want to go there. Why did you put that picture in everyone's head?
On the road again.
Just can't wait to get on that road again. Mucus.
Anyway, yeah. We'll go on to the last song on the album. Another hidden treasure, one I really dug. The Willard Surprise, I Don't Want to Get Over You.
Okay, so the way it was sung I thought was very whiny. But I like the theme and the idea of like just playing a song on repeat because it reminds you of somebody that you used to know. No. No, just because it...
She's breaking out a Whitney Houston impression
here. No. I'm making a bad reference to Gautier. But, it just makes me think of times when I've, like, had a bad breakup or something like that, and I just put on some music, and I just wallow in it. Yeah. And stew in my sadness, and just feel everything. And that's the impression I got from this song. And I can definitely relate to that.
For me, how I interpreted it was, again, we're talking about somebody who's gone through a breakup, who's just at the point where he's realizing that it's okay to still embrace those feelings that you had for someone. That's what I liked about this song. That I don't want to get over you. Why should you necessarily have to get over someone? That does not mean, I want to make that clear, that does not mean that you should have that person back in your life. But you were, and we're also talking a normal relationship with a healthy breakup. And, we're not talking, violence in a relationship. We're not talking mental abuse. We're talking, just...
relationships some relationships, they begin
end.
And they have a middle and then they just end and you grow apart and you go your separate ways.
Yeah. And, why not embrace that feeling of, appreciating what that person brought to your life?
Yeah, more people should. That's a much healthier way to go about it than just, like, wallowing and stewing and all that. I mean, granted, it's okay to do those things. You just have to get to the point where you're going to stop doing it.
And I think to your point, when you're talking about the whining part, I mean, the reason I think both of these, your opinion and my opinion kind of actually meld together really well is that I think that the character singing the song, because Waylon and Willie are kind of like, Frank Sinatra and other, legendary singers in a way that they're not just singing the song, they become the song, they make it a character and whatnot. I could picture the person in that song whining, but they're just getting at that point to where they're realizing that,
they need to sort of snap out of it.
They need to snap out of it, that you can accept the good things that a person brought to your life, but it's time to move on.
Yeah, and I think that it's every person who... I think it was Dan Savage. He's a advice columnist and a podcaster as well. Mm-hmm. He had a kind of rule of thumb for breakups is that you get about a month to kind of wallow and eat ice cream and bitch about him to your friends, bitch about him or her to your friends, whatever. And then after about a month, you got to get your shit together and get back on the horse. Not necessarily get back to dating, but you got to, like, get out of your pajamas and go and do things and put the Ben & Jerry's down
and not wallow in your own crapulence.
Pretty much, yeah. You have to sort of get up and go. Not necessarily start dating again, but you gotta kind of let it rest. And if you really still need to keep unpacking, that's when you get a therapist.
Yeah. And for me, that's what I ultimately liked about this song, and what I like about, Waylon and Willie overall. It's a lot of good songwriting. Not every song is a winner. I'll be the first to admit that.
Yeah.
I think they could have done a little bit better in terms of pacing. Willie could have brought a couple more up tempo songs to kind of break up the dark mood he was in. I don't know if he was going through a breakup at the time.
Maybe he was going... He's been married a couple of different times, hasn't he?
I would be shocked if he wasn't.
Yeah. Well, plus I know Willie's a big pothead, but was he, like, using other drugs at this time?
I don't think so. I mean, I do know, because Waylon, Willie, they did hang around in the Nashville scene in the 60s. Waylon,
whiskey involved.
Yeah, I mean, Waylon goes back even further. You may even know this, but Waylon Jennings was supposed to be on the plane that Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens were on. Yeah. He ended up trading seats with the Big Bopper because the Big Bopper was a bigger gentleman, and I was like, I'm gonna get a cold on the bus, and Waylon was like, yeah, take my seat. And from that one decision, we got the narrator for the Dukes of Hazzard.
yeah, exactly. So
yeah. Overall, What'd you think of the album? Did it change your opinion? Was it better than you anticipated?
It was about what I expected. I expected that there would be a few songs that I would like and quite a few more that I would not like. And so it was about what I expected.
Okay. Well, I would definitely recommend this. It brought back a lot of memories too. I mean, I joke about, me and my sister and whatnot, but it does remind me of, growing up with my mother, just like in a lot of ways, it's weird. Like me today, I could be much better friends with my mother from that time than, than we were when when she was alive and whatnot, just because of musical interest in whatnot. And so kind of a way to, still kind of connect with her. And let's end with one more story about my sister.
Oh, geez. Oh, no.
This is one I mentioned at my mother's funeral. For me, I feel it's important for a funeral, if you are going to speak, it has to be, even if it has to be lighthearted. I mean, because when I pass away, I want my funeral, if people have one for me, to kind of be like what Graham Chapman's from Monty Python's Flying Circus was. Like John Cleese came up and gave a eulogy and was just like, I'm happy he's dead, that freeloading bastard. He still owed me money. And just was going on about that funny stuff. He said it a lot better than I did. But, I told a story about the time my sister broke a window.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was in the living room. We had our couch right in front of our big living room window there, a huge window. And one day my sister decided she was going to be a cat. And I'm like,
She was going to be a cat?
A cat. And she started crawling on top of the couch.
Oh.
And I'm like, no, you're by the window. Anything could happen. Don't do that. So I'm trying to pull her off. And she's like, no, don't. Because she always had to get her way. And finally, she ended up just a brutal kick to my chest, knocked me back, but I let her go, and her knee went through the window.
Oh, did she cut herself?
No, the curtain kind of protected that, but she put a big hole in it. So I was like, you broke the window, guess who's calling mom? So my mother worked at a bar at the time, and my sister called and was crying, I broke the window, like that, but I'm sitting there like, you better tell her. That is the smart thing to do, And then after the phone call, my sister is like in the living room, just sitting in a chair, like crying, and I'm standing up like, when she gets here, you're going to blah, 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 you're going to do this, you're going to do that. You hear this car in the distance, just going, and then the closer it gets to the house, I swear my mother did a Dukes of Hazzard turn. Just, and then pulled into the driveway. Gets out of the car, slams the car door. What does my sister do? She runs for cover. She runs upstairs. And I knew that with as angry as my mother was, and my mother knew she could take angry to a higher art form. If people think I could be angry and petty, I learned from the master. So I knew that if I went upstairs to chase after my sister and my mother had to go upstairs to see us both, we'd both get in trouble. So I took the brunt of that.
Oh, you took one for the team.
Yeah, and I ended up getting grounded for a month for doing the right thing.
Oh, God. What happened to your sister?
I think she went to the circus. I don't know.
No, seriously, did she get grounded too?
No, I seriously think she went to the circus a couple weeks later.
You weren't just making a joke, like, about the circus, thinking she ran away with the circus.
No. Went to the circus to watch the circus with friends.
Well, you were grounded, and she broke the window.
My mother wasn't the most consistent.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
Yeah. It is what it is. But anyway, that is why I brought it up. So next week, what should we expect?
Okay,
and
so
I would like to apologize for bringing up a country album.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We had a pretty good time discussing that. So
okay.
Yeah, we laughed a lot, so that's important. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know I'm pretty hypocritical in saying whiny man. So guess what? We're gonna listen to The Cure. The Cure, The Head on the Door, will be what we talk about next week. This is a very special album to me, and I will wax poetic about it next time. But yes, The Head on the Door by The Cure.
Okay. with that, we thank you all for listening to Friends Talking Nerdy. We did receive news today as we're recording this that the Friends Talking Nerdy podcast is now available on iHeartRadio.
Ooh, we're moving on up.
Yeah, we are on Spotify. We're on Google Play Music, Apple Podcast as well. There are other podcast players that, utilize those services to pull our show onto there as well. So pretty much anywhere you have a podcast available, we're going to be on it.
Right on.
Yep. So with that, we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.
See you next week.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.